The flat seemed perfect. The man showing us around was friendly, funny, completely normal. Then he smiled and said there was one more place we really needed to see. The cellar. I wish we'd left before he said that. A few years ago, me and my girlfriend were looking for somewhere to rent around Stockport side of Greater Manchester. So when the flat came up on the old Victorian house not far from Stockport, we booked a viewing straight away. It had a bit more character than the usual new build flats we'd been looking at. Our viewing was booked for 6:30 the following evening. By the time we got there, it started to get dark. Not properly dark, just that dull grey evening light where the street lights have started coming on. The house itself was bigger than it looked online. 3 stories, large bay windows, stone steps leading up to the front entrance. It had obviously once been one large family house before somebody converted it into several flats. We parked a little way down the road and walked back. As we got near the property, the front door opened. A man stepped out onto the top step. He was probably late 40s. Smart trousers, shirt, dark coat. He had a big bunch of keys in one hand. He smiled when he saw us and asked if we were there for the 6:30 showing. I said yes. He introduced himself as Martin. And honestly, we liked him immediately. He was one of those people who seemed very easy to talk to. Confident without being pushy. Friendly. He made a joke about the Manchester weather because it had started spitting with rain and told us get inside before it properly came down. My girlfriend laughed. Straight away everything felt relaxed. He led us through the main hallway towards the flat at the back of the ground floor. While we walked, he told us a little about the building. Apparently there are 6 flats altogether, mostly young professionals, fairly quiet. Again, completely normal. He opened the flat and let us walk in first. It looked almost exactly like the photographs. Small lounge, kitchen off to one side, bedroom at the back, bathroom that looked like it had been refurbished fairly recently. Martin was good at showing us around. That's something I remember. He didn't just stand there waiting for us to ask questions. He pointed things out. Where the fuse box was, where the boiler was, which windows had recently been replaced. He even showed us a little switch beside the kitchen door and explained it controlled an outside light in the shared yard. There was nothing uncomfortable about him. If anything, we both thought he was probably one of the nicest agents we'd dealt with. That's important. We moved into the bedroom. There was a big window overlooking a small paved yard. Martin said it was shared but hardly anybody used it. My girlfriend asked whether it was secure. He said there was a locked gate leading back into the street and only tenants had the key. Then he asked if we had a car. I said yes. He asked what we drove. I told him. He said parking on the road was usually fine after 6. Again, nothing odd, just conversation. Then he asked whether we were usually out during the day. I said most weekdays, yes. He nodded and said that's probably good because the building tended to be very quiet in daytime anyway. It didn't register as strange. Not then. Beside the bedroom was a narrow door. Martin opened it and showed us a storage cupboard. There was still a few things inside. A woman's coat, a pair of shoes, some carrier bags, a toiletries bag on the floor. I asked if the previous tenant hadn't moved out yet. He said she'd left in a bit of a hurry and probably left a few things. said the landlord would clear everything up before anybody moved in. Then we went back into the lounge. At that point, if you'd asked me whether we were interested in the flat, I probably would have said yes. No, I would have said definitely. It wasn't perfect, but it was decent, affordable, great location, and Martin had made the whole viewing very easy. Then he mentioned the cellar. He said the advert didn't really explain how much storage came with the flat. Apparently each tenant had access to an area downstairs. He said the cellar was actually one of the best features about the property. I remember joking that I wasn't sure a cellar was ever the best thing about a flat. Martin laughed. He said I'd be surprised. Then he told us we should go down and have a look. My girlfriend said it didn't really matter to us. We didn't have much to store anyway. Martin said it was still worth seeing. He said if we moved in, we'd want to know exactly what we were getting. Still friendly, still smiling, but slightly more insistent. I told him we could have a look another time if we decided to apply. He looked at me for a second, then smiled again. He said it would only take a minute. There was a door near the end of the communal hallway. He said the cellar stairs are just behind it. Something had changed. It was difficult to explain. His voice was still pleasant. He was still smiling. But now it felt like he really wanted us to go downstairs. My girlfriend said we were actually in a bit of a rush. Martin looked at her. He said we'd already come all this way. You may as well see the whole place. She said no, honestly, it was fine. Then he said something that made us both uncomfortable. He said the cellar was much bigger than people expected. And once you were down there, you could hardly hear anything, or anything in the house. He smiled when he said that. Maybe he meant it as positive. Maybe he was talking about storage. But the atmosphere completely changed. My girlfriend stopped smiling, so did I. Martin seemed to notice. He immediately went back to being cheerful. He said he wasn't trying to pressure us. He just didn't want us missing out on part of the property. But now I was ready to leave too. I thanked him and said we'd contact the agency if we wanted to apply. Martin asked if we were sure. I said yes. That was when I noticed the keys again. When we first arrived, he'd been carrying a large bunch of them. Now they were in his coat pocket. I remembered hearing the main entrance door close when we came in. I hadn't really thought about whether he'd locked it. Martin walked us down the hallway. When he reached the front door, he took the keys out of his pocket. He had locked it. He unlocked the door and pulled it open. My girlfriend went outside first. I followed. Martin was suddenly calm and charming again, exactly as he was when we arrived. He smiled and told us both to have a think about it. He said the flats around here go very quickly. Then he told my girlfriend it had been lovely meeting her. She gave him a polite smile. We walked back towards the car. When I looked behind us, Martin was still standing at the doorway, just watching us. The moment we got inside the car, my girlfriend said, "No, absolutely not." I knew exactly what she meant. It wasn't really the flat. It wasn't the cellar conversation. She said Martin had changed. I agreed. About 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was a letting agent. A woman apologized and said her agent had been delayed at another appointment. She asked whether we wanted to rearrange the viewing. I thought she had the wrong couple. I told her we had already seen the flat. She sounded confused. She asked when. I said about 20 minutes earlier. Then she asked who had shown us around. I said Martin. There was a silence. She said nobody's called Martin working for the agency. At first I didn't understand. I said maybe he worked directly for the landlord. She said no. the landlord didn't use anybody else. Their employee had just reached the property. The building was locked. Nobody was answering. Then she asked whether we were still nearby. I said we were already on our way home. She told us not to go back. She was contacting the landlord and calling the police. That was the moment everything about the viewing rearranged itself into my head. The questions about where we worked. The questions whether the flat would be empty during the day. What car did we drive? The belongings in the cupboard. And most of all, the cellar. My girlfriend was sitting beside me listening to the call. Neither of us said anything for a while. Police went to the property and the landlord that evening. Martin wasn't there. There was no obvious forced entry. The locks hadn't been broken. Nothing appeared to have been stolen. But the belongings in the cupboard beside the bedroom didn't belong to the previous tenant. She'd moved out weeks earlier and had confirmed she'd taken everything with her. The police searched the rest of the building. Then they went down into the cellar. There was a normal storage area used by the tenants, but behind a wooden partition was another section that apparently hadn't been used for years. Somebody had been living there. There was a sleeping bag on the floor, blankets, empty food packets, bottle of water, a torch, some clothes and a cheap radio battery. From what we've been told, it looked like somebody had been staying there for quite a while. The police couldn't say for certain if it was Martin, but obviously that was what everyone thought. Nothing ever came of it, at least nothing we heard about. For the next few days, me and my girlfriend kept going over everything he said, especially the cellar. If we agreed to follow him down there, what would he have done? Could he have locked us in? Could he have locked us in the house? Nobody knew we were with him. Nobody from the agency even knew the viewing had started, and the entire time Martin had the keys. Eventually, though, things settled down. Then one evening my girlfriend came into the room holding her phone. She looked pale. She didn't say anything. She just handed it to me. There was a message from a number neither of us recognised. It had been sent less than a minute earlier. It said, "Hi, it's Martin. Did you like the apartment?" We called the police. The number was disconnected by the time they tried it. They never found out how he got our mobile number. And that was the part that stayed with me, because we hadn't given Martin our numbers. We hadn't filled anything in while we was there. We hadn't contacted him directly. As far as he knew, he didn't even know our names. But somehow, after we left the house, Martin knew exactly how to contact her.